Welcome to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because as I like to say, we're the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on this powerful SuperTalk Mississippi radio network on SuperTalk TV at C-Spire TV. You might be watching the show on Facebook or YouTube or watching it on your favorite podcast. If so, it's March the 25th, 2024. Hey, well, the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission held a meeting last week, and there was mostly high points during the meeting. The staff did an incredible job of an educational session beforehand that covered the risks of supplemental feeding. Be sure to watch last week's special CWD show if you missed it. In the public part of the meeting, a citizen by the name of William Troy Orso gave an excellent public comment about supplemental feeding and how it has negatively impacted hunting. And then there was a good contingent of very passionate turkey hunters at the meeting who were opposed to a fall turkey season. I thought that Bill Coster did a really good job of running the meeting and making the speakers, because there were a lot of them, feel welcomed and appreciated. At the very end of the meeting, Leonard Bench gave a very long and sort of revealing speech that included attacking SuperTalk Outdoors and our guests. He clearly doesn't like the sunlight that has been on his actions on the commission over the past couple of years. I thank God for commission meetings being videoed. As a result of their videoed actions, we're able to actually hear their positions from their own words on this show. Bence's included. That's such a benefit. That's what sunlight looks like when you shine it. And I want to thank the Executive Director, Lynn Posey. I really appreciate his tenacity and his team for working to make sure the live streams are there. I also want to thank Billy Munger, Commissioner Billy Munger, once again, a great leader on that commission. He's the one that pushed really hard to do the live streams. Vince actually had someone go into my personal Facebook page, sorting through many years of family photos not available to the general public. Lots of them outdoors photos of my kids and grandkids. And what was he looking for? He was looking for pictures of deer feeders. Since I've been talking about supplemental feeding being something we need to have a very serious conversation about in this state, given the spread of CWD, he had someone pry into my personal life to help him make his desperate and misguided point. He showed a deer feeder on the back of a friend's four-wheeler in one picture, a bag of corn on the back of another four-wheeler in another, and so on. Just pictures of deer camp life you'd see repeated hundreds of thousands of times across the state of Mississippi on any given day in deer season. That sounds like a high number, doesn't it? Well, last week, William McKinley from the department and Bronson Strickland from Mississippi State shared a Mississippi State aerial study that estimates that 118,000 feeders are across the state of Mississippi. And since then, incidentally, a lot of people have sent notes to me saying there's probably more than that. So it's a big number. I've never said, frankly, that I haven't hunted where feeders were sometimes used. In fact, for regular listeners, you know this. I've actually complained about that fact on this show. My friends know this well. This doesn't change how I personally feel about feeders. Aside from what I'm now learning about chronic wasting disease, I've never liked feeders. My experience of them is exactly what the experts say, that you won't find mature deer at feeders in daylight and so on. That's just my experience. I killed my biggest deer of my life this past year. Just hard hunting, a good food plot, no feeder, and just a lot of good luck. But because I've hunted where feeders have been occasionally used, that doesn't make me lack credibility on the issue, something he claimed. That's ridiculous. It actually gives me an important perspective, especially as it relates to CWD and the decisions that are in front of our state. Feeders have been an ongoing debate for us all across Mississippi, and especially, I would say also between my friends and me for years. If you're a deer hunter, I bet you have debates with your friends about feeders as well. These debates are often resolved agreeing some years to put feeders on plots that are near property lines where adjacent property owners are using feeders. But you know the drill. The dilemma plays out all across the state every single year. Often the feeders get put out, then they get filled, and then as the season goes on, they don't get filled anymore. That's just kind of the way it is. It's a never-ending cycle. But the reality is now biologists are sharing data, as they did last week, proving that feeders could create a CWD super spreader event for deer. What I have learned about CWD and about the tough decisions that Mississippi has to make about this insidious disease through my own research and through talking with guests here on this show in just the last few months has been extremely eye-opening. So I guess Bence thinks attacking SuperTalk Outdoors, my guests and me, is going to somehow change that narrative. On this show, we celebrate that Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America. I respond occasionally, and so do my guests, to public bodies acting in the name of the public trust in public meetings. Just to be clear, I would never violate the personal lives of people I have covered to make any point, much less such a misguided point. When you mix politics and power and special interests with wildlife policy, this is what you get. And this is why sunlight from SuperTalk Outdoors is so important. I came to be in the news business back in 1982. It's amazing that long ago. But the reason that I'm still here in retirement doing this show 42 years later is because I love the outdoors and to keep the sunshine on the people making decisions that will impact our kids and our kids' kids. During his comments, Ben made it abundantly clear that he supports deer breeders who have high fences in the state and who want to obliterate the North American wildlife model that has been at the core of our conservation success in Mississippi. That's that the state's wildlife belongs to the people, not a few rich, politically connected deer breeders. Deer breeder Billy DeVinny himself told the commission in an open meeting over a year ago that he has invested $2 to $3 million in his breeding operation. That was at the time. Wow. How anyone can listen to or watch the special chronic wasting disease show from last week, the SuperTalk Outdoor show from last week, showing the irrefutable evidence between deer breeders and CWD across the U.S., can still push an agenda like that? I mean, to me, it's amazing. And it's really careless. Bence also revealed that he got a call from the Speaker of the House last year that asked him to hold off on a resolution to the commission seeking to make the sale and transfer of deer legal. I actually found that very interesting that he would disclose that. Let me give you a little bit of background. Last year, House Wildlife Committee Chairman Bill Kincaid tried to pass a bill to make the sale and transfer of white-tailed deer illegal, and with this public trust doctrine that I'll talk about more recently. The bill was actually moving along pretty well, but then it was suddenly stopped by the deer breeder lobby. Yes, that's the same bill that Chairman Kincaid introduced again this year with a new Speaker of the House that passed the House 117-0. This bill, if it passes the Senate and signed by the governor, will galvanize into state law that wildlife belongs to the people and cannot be sold. All eyes are now on the Senate. It's disappointing to hear backroom dealing involving Speaker Gunn that Bence shared last week. None of this has ever been discussed in a commission meeting publicly. This is the point that I've been making, that the work of the commission should be out there and for the world to see. They're doing our work. They're not doing their work. They're doing our work. I'm told after the commission's effort to seek an attorney general's opinion that ultimately that led to an AG's opinion that put the power in the hands of the commission to actually make the selling of deer legal, that the commission didn't actually have the votes to do it. They thought at one point that they did. It takes 3 votes to change the course of history as it relates to our conservation future in Mississippi. The deer breeders knew they needed to find more time. This is why the public trust doctrine is sitting in the Senate is so incredibly important. I love the way that James Cummings from Wildlife Mississippi talks about it. He said on my show last week, he said, it doesn't matter if your house is held up by 5 columns or 4 axles. We share ownership in Mississippi's wildlife equally. Man, I love that. I mean, such a powerful way to say it. By the way, James is also the chairman of the Boone and Crockett Club for North America. It's the North America's oldest conservation organization, and he's from right here in Mississippi. We're lucky to have James. We're lucky to have many others like him who are with us in the conservation community and watching these issues extremely carefully. Hey, listen, as I said, I've been in the media business for a long time. I'm used to special interests attacking the messenger. Sunlight on the public process can make public officials unhappy. That goes with the territory. But you can understand why I speak regularly about why it's important for me to have an independent voice. My voice is not controlled by anyone, and I have the full support of SuperTalk Mississippi media. My guests and I are committed to the public's wildlife resources, you, your children, and your grandchildren. We will continue to make observations about commissioners' positions on the issues because they occupy such an important role in our state. That's just a fact. And we will sometimes, as we always will, we will always focus on powerful voices in the conservation community who have things to share that are important to our journey. This is a serious time. These are serious issues. It's going to take serious people to get them right. We can't afford to get it wrong. The stakes are too high. When we come back from break, we'll move on. We've got something else important to share. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors, and thank you for joining us today. Listen, it gets hairy at times when you sit in a chair like this, but I have to tell you, over the past several days, I have heard from, I cannot tell you how many people, from inside the department, outside the department, retirees, legislators, long list of people who support the efforts that we are focused on, the public trust doctrine, and being very responsible about how we manage CWD. And any attacks or any of the noise that's out there is not going to stop any of that effort, believe me. Hey, listen, after the special CWD show last week, we had a really important discussion about quality deer management versus CWD management, and we taped it. So we're going to play it now, and then we'll see you on the other side. We'll see you after this. We're doing a kind of a rare after the show conversation because I really wanted to get have a quick conversation about quality deer management and how it could, some suggest it could collide with chronic wasting disease, you know, the way you go about them. And I was asking Bronson to kind of give me his thought on that.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, QDM and CWD management are not as misaligned as a lot of people think, because when you get to the fundamentals of QDM, one of the very first things is making sure that your deer herd is at an appropriate density relative to your habitat. And William can agree with this. I think William would agree with this. Across the board in Mississippi and the Southeast, most deer herds are way above where they should be relative to the naturally occurring food that is supplied. And so that is why we see relatively smaller antlers, smaller body sizes, etc. So at least right now, if you're looking at this from a QDM approach simultaneous to CWD management, lower the deer density, and then you are also going to be improving for the deer that don't have the disease. You are improving the amount of food that is relative to them, and you are going to see a response in terms of body size and antler size. So I don't think there's, at least at this point in time, that big of an issue with the two. And William, that's my perspective. I'd be happy to hear yours.
Well, yes, but I would also like to point out that the best place to aggressively combat CWD is exactly where it is. Now that sounds too simple, I know, but when we find CWD, what other states are looking at is if they're trying to actually aggressively reduce the density, it is immediately where it is, usually within 1 or 2 miles of where it is. And we have taken an approach on that by using what we're calling 3-mile tags. We will issue landowners within 3 miles of a known CWD positive. We'll issue them tags to use a gun during archery season. We have not taken the approach that some states have in sharpshooting around positives. We have taken this approach in asking our hunters to increase the harvest right there, knowing that in an area that small, and Bronson will agree here, when you remove a lot of deer out of a small area, what happens? Deer from surrounding areas move in as the resources improve. So the goal there of that is to get rid of as many positive deer as possible in a small area, and then let the surrounding deer simply move back in before it becomes what we would consider endemic, before there's enough in the soil that is impossible. When the prevalence is low, science is showing out there, you can have an impact. Look at what Missouri's doing. Look at what Illinois is doing on that. So you can have an impact if you catch CWD early. Only way to catch CWD early is to test for it aggressively. So we need testing.
So I actually get it. What you guys are saying about quality deer management and CWD not being conflicting. In fact, they actually might quite fit well together, because if you're talking about, for example, getting a buck to doe ratio down to 1 to 2, whatever the prescription is for a piece of property, it could require you, in some cases, I can think of some of the land that I lease, to reduce the deer herd pretty substantially as it relates to especially does. Okay, so this is not about conflict, but this is where CWD is impacting QDM. I can't help but think about Benton County, because I think about it a lot. You think about the what they're experiencing and the increased prevalence in somewhere like Benton County. If I've got a piece of property in Benton County and I'm really committed to quality deer management, I've gotten my herd down and whatever, but the bucks, I just don't see as many mature bucks anymore. That is absolutely, unfortunately, one of the terrible side effects of CWD with high prevalence, isn't it, William?
Well, yes, Ricky, and yes. So we have the choice of trying to manage that herd with CWD or letting CWD manage that herd. And I don't want anywhere else in the state to get prevalence like Benton County has. And it's very unfortunate for especially North Benton County. We're getting calls of dead deer on the landscape. They're finding dead heads now as they go out. I heard that often this past deer season. My goal was to try to prevent other areas from becoming that, because there's not a lot of deer living past 3 years old in that county anymore. That's just what the disease does. It shortens lifespans. So with good quality deer management, with taking care of our herd and keeping density down, and then if testing, providing adequate nutrition, if we do find CWD, aggressively dealing with it early, right there in one small spot on the landscape, that's what other states are showing is working. So it's not a contradiction to QDM. It is actually the two, as I agree with Brunson, they merge together well.
Bronson, we'll close on this point, but to me, that's pretty compelling. That we want to take, unfortunately, in Mississippi, we have an experience in one county, other counties kind of getting close. We're discovering CWD in general in new counties. But the reality of something like Benton, where the prevalence is high, where the occurrence of positive tests relative to the deer population in Benton County has increased pretty dramatically over a very short period of time, and then we see what subsequent impact that has on the older deer. And we're for people who are ethical hunters who are wanting to get big deer in the wild. I had the opportunity to get one on one of my leases this year, 160-inch deer that we had 3 or 4 years of experience with. I want my grandkids to have that experience. In order for us to have that experience, we have to take advantage of the best practices that are emerging in other states and just make sure we're implementing them here with the goal to keep the prevalence as low as possible. That's the bottom line. And there's growing science and growing evidence from statistics that will help us take what we've learned about Benton County and hopefully make sure that doesn't happen in other counties. That's kind of the bottom line, isn't it, Bronson?
Yeah, I think you expressed that perfectly. That is the goal. And I also predict we're going to get more and more efficient at managing for CWD as we learn more and more from science. And so there is currently, as for the past decade, a lot of new research that's going on, a lot of new ways to approach management of the disease. And, my fingers are crossed that over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have breakthroughs in what we can do to manage the disease.
Well, that's awesome. And that's a real great positive note to end. Oh, William, one thing you wanted to add? Yeah.
I'd like to add one plug to that. There is a research project going on practically continent-wide right now called SOP for CWD. This project is taking management decisions made by states, and we're participating in it, by the way. It's about half the states and a few Canadian provinces. And they're looking at different management techniques, applying that to how it worked in this state versus that. It is that big warehouse where everything is coming in and they can go, okay, well, Arkansas did this, but Mississippi did this, and here's the outcome. It's not a short-term project. But as Brunson said, when we give it a few more years, and we're going to have coming like out of that project showing what worked and what didn't, so other states can start applying that to those regions of their state which may not have CWD yet or just finding it. The bottom line is that research is ongoing, but CWD is just a slow moving beast.
Yeah, so insidious disease, as you've discussed it before. Hey, listen, there's something great from data. I love the fact that we would be doing some common research that tries to get the data points comparable so that we can drive best practices, because as we all know, what gets measured gets done. And this is one time when that's going to be super important. But in this rare sort of conversation after the show, after the Super Talk Outdoor show here on March the 18th, 2024, I'm glad we had this conversation, and we'll post it on social media and make it available to people so they can see it. It's been a pleasure, my friends.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Have a great day. See you later. So that was the show after the show last week. And boy, we're lucky to have Bronson Strickland from Mississippi State and William McKinley, head of the deer program for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Man, we've learned so much from them. I've learned so much from them. I have so deep respect for the roles that they're playing and keeping us focused on what we need to do. When we come back on the other side, I have a very special guest. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I'm so glad we had an opportunity to share that sort of show after the show that happened last week, because it's very powerful to see quality deer management and how it can actually coexist with the efforts that we must put in place around CWD management. Hey, listen, one of the benefits of doing this show is that I get to meet so many amazing people. People I know introduce me to other people, and I think over the past week, I probably heard directly from 100 more. I don't know how many. I looked at one of the posts on Facebook, and over 3,000 people engaged in it. So we're touching a lot of people across the state. And one of the guys that I met, we had a long conversation. I really enjoyed the conversation. Salt of the earth guy, a guy that represents so many of us in terms of his love of the outdoors, is a new friend, somebody I really enjoyed getting to know. And I said, why not Chipper Gibbes, why don't you join me on the show? Chipper's from Learned, Mississippi, a longtime outdoorsman. He's involved in a bunch of different businesses, a family store, a family steakhouse. He's in the real estate business. We'll talk about some of that here in just a second. Chipper, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Ricky. I really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today.
It's good. Hey, listen, it was great to read a little bit more about you and your bio. But, I tell this story over and over again that so many of us, certainly true of me, and I would say 99.9% of our guests, they got the love of the outdoors passed to them generationally. And that's your story too, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I've been outside since I was old enough to follow my granddaddy around, and grew up hunting and fishing, and it grows in you over a lifetime, really. And you go through different phases of, when you're younger, you want to kill the biggest deer in the woods, and then you graduate into getting enjoyment from other areas in outdoors. So it's just a lifestyle and a lifetime of growing in that regard.
You spent a lot of time on a tractor along the way, didn't you?
I did. I was on a tractor probably before I got my driver's license. So that's tractor therapy is always a good thing.
Yeah, listen, when you and I talked on the phone, we talked a little bit about Learned. I knew basically where it was there southwest of Jackson. And one of the questions I asked you was, it's close enough to Jackson that people can get there, but far enough from Jackson that some of the intensity of building and all that is not really kind of taken over. You still got the small town feel in Learned, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It really hadn't changed a whole lot since I was a youngster. And it is in a great spot because we're, within 30 minutes of Jackson, we're within 30 minutes of Vicksburg. If you find yourself there, you probably took a wrong turn. You have to be coming there for a purpose. You're not just going to pass through it. So.
Well, I love the fact that you and your wife have the steakhouse. You're running it out of 5-generation country store in Learned. And, look, my travels across Mississippi in these small communities, usually that's where you find the best steak. I mean, I have had some great steaks in places that fit that description. And you've got people driving for a long distance to come to your place, don't you?
it is unbelievable how far people will come to experience it, and it blows my mind. I don't understand why. It's really an amazing little place, and it's not something I ever thought I'd be doing, to be honest with you. It just life throws you curveballs sometimes, and then you find yourself in the middle of it, and then you're just doing it. So
you went to Millsaps. One of my best friends attended Millsaps. What a great school that is. And you became a real estate appraiser for a bunch of years, and so you began to understand the value of real estate, whether it be farmland or commercial building or whatever. You studied that intensively. But over the years, you sort of moved over into a business working, in fact, with Brad Ferris, the Primos Brad Ferris, working on land specials. You're in the real estate business, but you also do consulting and whatever. But somewhere along the way, your strong interest for conservation in the state, your love of Mississippi, intersected with the mission that you've been on as an entrepreneur, and you found a way to do both, love the outdoors and make a living from it at the same time. That's been a really good venture for you, hasn't it?
It has. When I was appraising real estate, I appraised all property types, but I always found myself loving anytime I got an assignment to go do a big hunting property, I would enjoy that the most. And I love the appraisal business. I think it gave me some good experiences and some knowledge and stuff that I use on a daily basis now. But as I rolled along, the sales side of real estate kind of fit me a little bit better. And obviously, being able to get in a specialty where we could deal with rural property and farms and timberland and hunting property, that was just what I really like to do. Because if I'm not out there selling real estate or flipping steaks on the weekend, I'm going to be out on the property trying to improve it. So that's what the whole thing kind of, and Brad's the same way. And going and trying to help other people buy a piece of land and seeing their excitement and teaching them, the things that we've learned along the way. It's very rewarding, and it keeps you in the outdoors a lot. And it's really been a fun thing to do.
Hey, listen, I said this about Brad and Jimmy when they were on the show, like almost, I think it was the first week of SuperTalk Outdoors, maybe even the first show. And in conversation I've had with Will and Jordan, Will Primos and Lake Pickle and Jordan Blissett and that group. And then also when I talk with my friends over at Mossy Oak, from Toxie to Cuz or whoever, that these guys are incredible ambassadors for Mississippi to the rest of I say the country, but really to the world. But Brad is an incredible ambassador. I mean, he really is. Whether you're talking about the role that Mississippi plays as the capital of the outdoors in America, or the voice that he has on a nationwide basis, or whether he's talking about controlled burning, he has to be an incredible partner to have in your real estate journey.
He is, and he's like a brother to me, really. We share such same interest, and the thing about Brad is he is the same guy, whether he is out working by himself, burning or planting a food plot or whatever, as he is when he's doing his Primo stuff. He is just right there, salt of the earth guy the whole way through. I mean, it's just no other way to describe him.
Well, that's how you appear to be as well. What's your favorite hunting to do, Chipper?
Turkey hunting is my favorite. I mean, I do love deer hunting. I love the bow hunt. But if I had to give one up, I don't think I could give turkey hunting up. I love turkey hunting, and always have ever since I was, old enough to start learning how to do it.
Yeah, I tell you again, I don't care who is on my show, whether they're known to the world or not, that they loved turkey hunting. They describe it sort of like Will Primos describes it. He said once he was out turkey hunting, and he thought to do a prayer, but then he realized that he was in a prayer. I just love the way he says that he literally was in a prayer. He was experiencing a prayer, being in that moment as he heard that gobble, and the way he talked about that cool spring morning. But there's something about it, man. And when you see those turkey hunters last week at the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission there, talking about their passion for turkey hunting. In this case, it was about whether there should be a fall turkey season or not. But when you hear them expressing their passion, that's something you guys all share. I've killed a turkey. My son is where you are. He is absolutely addicted. He walked 11 miles this past Saturday morning, didn't hear a bird. But there's something about it, isn't there?
It really is. It's nothing else like it, in my opinion. Of course, Brad would argue that elk hunting out in the Rocky Mountains would be probably equal, if not better. But that's something I've yet to experience, but I hope to at some point. But it is. I mean, turkey hunting is just so, especially if you grew up with old school turkey hunters that did it back in the day before shotguns were the way they are, and you didn't have all the decoys and they just, they were learning how to do it, and they had very basic stuff. And if you've ever had the opportunity to hunt with people that experienced that too, back in the early days, it's really a fun thing. And Will's one of those guys too. He's seen it from all aspects. And anytime you go hunting with him, it's like, it's almost like going back in time, and, you hear about how they used to do it. And it's just so fun, so rewarding. And our state is so blessed to have all these people, the Primos, the Mossy Oak. I mean, it's just what a heritage we have in this state along those lines.
Hey, listen, you think about how lucky we are to live in this state. I think about, I talk about it on the show all the time. We live in the capital of the outdoors with backwaters and offshore fishing and the Mississippi Delta and the hills of the Northeast and all this happening in between. I mean, we're lucky to live here. And, that's why a lot of people from other states want to come here and turkey hunt particularly, but they also come here to deer hunt as well. It's one of the reasons why we got to be really focused on making sure we make the right decisions as it relates to CWD. When we get on the other side, we'll have about 6-7 minutes left together. I'm curious actually about on the land that you own. How are you approaching CWD? I'd like to hear your thoughts about that. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Chipper Gibbes. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. Listen, I love this show because I get to meet people like Chipper Gibbes. If I didn't have the show, I'd have never met him. He's from Larned, Mississippi. I mean, he's got a great steakhouse, operates out of a 5-generation country store in Larned, Mississippi. I mean, look, come on. This is salt of the earth stuff here. But he also has a big family farm. He's got lots to say grace over. He loves hunting deer, loves hunting turkey. Chipper, when you hear the conversation we were just having about quality deer management and CWD management and the need for Mississippi to put the best practices in place, how are you approaching CWD on your land?
I think first and foremost, it's trusting the science and, the wonderful people that we have out there doing research to try to get ahead of this. Just follow the recommended, whatever it is they're telling you to do, just follow it. And I'll be the first to admit, I didn't understand the importance of testing and things like that at first. But once you start listening to the science and the reasoning behind all what they have presented, it's just important. It's important that they catch it early, and the only way that you're going to find it is to test for it. And they've already proven that if you find it, it's probably been there for longer. You didn't find the first deer that got infected, so it's probably there. And being able to stay ahead of it before the prevalence rate gets to a certain level is key. So I would just recommend everybody just listen to the science and learn as much as you can about it, and trust the scientists that are working on this and the information that they bring forward.
I think one of the good things about the show we did last week is we went directly to the naysayers, and we tried to say, based on this data, I mean, so much data is coming to fruition now. We can look at it, we can identify best practices, we can see what's working and what's not. The problem is it's a slow march. So you can, as I said on that show, you can make a change, but you may not see the result of that change for several years. So it's easy to react to that change in the short term. And that's part of the insidious nature of it. If it were a disease where a deer was affected like right now and everybody could see it, they don't have any trouble with getting people to see see it. But CWD is insidious in that way that it takes so long for it to sort of come to fruition. But again, what we said about Benton County is really important. How many deer do you test at your place? I'm just curious about that.
Say that again. I couldn't hear
How
you.
many deer do you test at your place?
I test every one that we shoot. I just feel like that's the best, the way to go. And if it is in our area, I would certainly want to know it, before so we could do something about it. So
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to test every deer that is harvested.
Yeah, we're gonna I think what we could do as a state, what we could do as hunters to help the wildlife biologists, and I mean, we're lucky to have that program at Mississippi State. I mean, it's the St. John family scholarship there that has established Bronson Strickland there. I can't tell you how important that is to the state of Mississippi. But we're lucky to have these people, but we got to help continue to provide data. And now that they're collecting data from all across the United States, there's so much we can learn as we continue to share this, it's kind of standard operating procedure so that we can latch on to best practices and explore that. But that's a big commitment you made. Where did that come from?
You talking about to test the different?
Yes.
Yeah. It's once again, it's just following the recommendations, and they make it so easy for you to do it. I do all mine through a taxidermist that helps me with it, and it's really not that hard. If you're pulling jawbones and collecting other herd data that's important, you might as well pull the lymph nodes and all that too, and have it sent off. So hey, what's
interesting is that most people don't necessarily realize that they don't necessarily have to test through the brain anymore. They can, there's a video you can watch about how to pull the neck lymph nodes. You put them in a Ziploc bag and label them properly and get them to the proper spot, and they can be done. But you can see they're trying to make it less cumbersome. And as you pointed out, if you're already involved in QDM or anything like that, and you're pulling jawbones and other things, this is just one additional thing you can do that could really give the state some important data. We haven't had a chance to really talk about your family, but you're able to involve your family in all these activities, aren't you?
Oh yes, I have two sons, Henry and Kirk, and actually Kirk's birthday is today, so he's getting his driver's permit today, so it's a big day for him. And Henry, he loves turkey hunting probably more than anything, about like me. So any chance you get to try to instill a love and appreciation for the outdoors with the next generation is time well spent and very valuable.
Well, Chipper, we're at the end of our time together, but man, I can't wait to have you back. In fact, we're going to have you back and have a conversation around controlled burns. There's been a lot more conversation about that going forward as we talk about supplemental feeding and what we need to do about that. We need to start talking about what needs to happen on private land with 90% of the land in Mississippi being private. There's, things like controlled burn can make a big, gigantic difference. And we'll have those kind of conversations as we go forward. But I'm super thrilled with what you contributed to the show today. And I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me.
Well, I appreciate it very much. And I could talk about burning and habitat management all day long. So I'll come back anytime you want.
You bet. You bet. Listen, this has been Chipper Gibbes. Have a great day, and we will see you next week. As I always say, stay safe when you're in the outdoors. Stay safe. God bless you.